Hello my friends, and today we are in a very special place as usual. We are in Rome, in Italy, with my new friend Bernard, or Dado, how you call yourself?
Either will do, good.
Please, we are, actually it's very difficult for me to introduce Bernardo, maybe you do it better than me even.
Well, yes, I suppose I would do it better by myself. We are in the first imperial garden of Rome. Wow. And my great-grandfather effectively purchased the estate of Emperor Augustus. His wife is the interesting one, Livia. She's a empress and curandera, a plant healer. I've been traveling all over the world. I've been scouring all over the world because I'm a storyteller. But then in the end, I came back to my garden. People started saying, you have to take your own responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? You have to take your own responsibilities. You're flying around all over the place and look at what you've got here. And what do we have here? We have a moment whereby the Empress, Livia, who is becoming more famous, you'll hear more and more about her in the years to come, she had the initiation into the intelligence of plants by an eagle who flew over her and threw down a white hen, and the white hen had a laurel twig in its beak. And this was an initiation allegory into the language of plants. And the oracle is here in the garden, where she asked the oracle what she should do, and the oracle told her what she did. And she produces lauretum and the garden, which she became a gardener, but a very special magic gardener. Mm-hmm. And she produced the plants which then resulted in the frescoes of the Triclinium. Villa di Livia is the main imperial villa, which are now probably the most famous ancient nature fresco in the world. And it represents 24 plant species, all simultaneously in bloom. They're now kept in the Museo Nazionale Romano. They've been taken to Rome for safekeeping. And these 24 plants in the painting then produced the botanical code of Augustus, which then was translated into the Ara Pacis, which was the altar of peace, which was built in 27 BC to celebrate the longest era of peace ever recorded in human history. Mm-hmm. So the work that we have between the academics, the archaeobotanists, and I'm the kind of storyteller in between, and the artists and the shamans. I don't tell the academics we're working with shamans, but they are. Mm-hmm. And we have the whole thing. And what it has generated this kind of equation where we realize that this initiation, those plants produce the longest peace in living history. And we have all those plants growing in our garden now. Mm-hmm. So part of our work, which is also tea drinking, by the way, now we discover, is also cultivating and making a nursery for these plants and producing the seeds of peace, because God knows we need a bit of peace in this world. Yeah. So here we are, and special people meet together, and we combine our interests. And what really interests me about the work of Sergey is that we are in a coffee culture here. Mm-hmm. Which coffee is great, and of course they make wonderful coffee in Italy and the espresso, but it's a different thing, and I feel that I'm a writer, and the first thing I do in the morning is I have just one cup of coffee. It's sacred. I only have one. Mm-hmm. Because I feel that coffee belongs to the action and the hyperaction, and tea belongs to the slowing down and is more the meditative side. And there is a thing in Roman culture whereby it was called Romans were great plant lovers. They used to retire in villa, and they used to go into this thing called Otium. Mm-hmm. Otium was productive inertia in the country. And Otium was the antonym and the antidote of negotium, which produced the word to negotiate. So negotiate is doing business and being inactive as the two balances of the yin and yang. Mm-hmm. And I feel that the coffee culture belongs to the negotium. You get up, You get into your suit. I don't get into a suit, but you go into the city and you do business and make money. But then you got to come back home and you have to go into the Otium, and then you sit down, you have a cup of tea. That's the way I see it. And I've been brought up in Oriental culture, and I know what that means. We've done the especially the Japanese tea ceremony, which we did a lot with that green. What do they call that green thing?
Matcha.
The matcha, which is almost like the tea version of a cappuccino. It's nice and frothy and creamy. Very nice.
Some cream. And also you said about Otium. For me, it's also very interesting history behind, because it looks like it was a very long history of meditation here. So it's a kind of meditation practice, or how it was.
Yes, it has always been a place of meditation because this was part of the garden which held the sacred, the Etruscan sanctuary, which was already a sacred place, and the Etruscans were the last surviving shamans on Western soil. They're still present because the Etruscans are actually the ancestors of the Tuscans. So by DNA, everything from north of here all the way to Tuscany are the Etruscans. They're the ones who had the magic. And in a way, as a result of this was a very Etruscan place, that Livia, who was a Latin Sabine, but she was another tribe, but they all came to learn from the Etruscans. And it was not just after, not just then when she came to ask the oracle. The oracle always spoke in enigmatic terms. You don't always understand what the oracle is speaking. You have to kind of reach out somehow. And this became very attractive to artists who started gathering here in 1949. They became invested in the fascination of the magic in here. And some very eminent artists started collecting here from 1949, when they started trying to exorcise the horrors of war and imagine a new future. And we have continued this tradition until this day. It's called the Cenacolo. So it was very much retreating in nature, but above all, really the thing was people, of course there were artists, and it would be retreat in nature to imagine. Imagine, John Lennon wrote that wonderful song. Imagine is much more than just fantasizing. It is entering into a different sphere which holds many aspects, neurological aspects, including the art of revery. Revery is the antechamber of dream, and you get into this dream-waking state, and most of the great inventions, even in science, belong in that kind of twilight zone of reverie. Like penicillin, even benzene, were all invented in reverie. So everybody knew this, and there were scientists and scholars and artists came here. So it's always been like this, and we were doing this right now. So we mix together. We have scientists, we have people like you coming. What a great gift that you come! But of course, you come from someone who is a shaman, who is introduced to me because I was asking questions about plants, and the network goes on. We are in Rome, but we could be the world. Roma represents the Romanitas as we see it. It represents universalitas. You cannot think today about Rome. You cannot think about Lazio or Italy or even Europe or even the West. You can only think about the whole dear old planet that is suffering so much, and we have to be connected, and we have to make sure that our actions work within a web of life, really seeing the web of life. So this is really what this place has represented, and slowly I'm trying to make it into a retreat far from the madding crowd, get away, take away all the buzz and the noise and the stimulus and the speed, and cultivate slowness and slow time and inaction, which is really hard for people to just sit under a tree.
Yeah, actually, it's very important for also how I see that when you create and spread this way of understanding of life, also be close to nature, also be a little bit aware of inner self, not only about out. And as more people are slowly became involved in similar process like this, like you're doing here, and what you're planning to do more, I think world really became more peaceful in this way. It's also kind of I think so. It also, but I think that's what having had
much of my education also in India. We have had great masters in India, in Tibet. So I have very much the Orient as part of my Occidents, those the Orients. But what I've learned actually in my experience is that there's a lot of kind of bad things that are done in the name of spirituality and religion.
Yeah.
So this is where my part as a storyteller has come out as really the best way. You speak in parables, you speak in metaphor, you never tell anybody to do anything, because that's the worst thing you can do. But what you can do is you can. This is why, as you imagine and you tell stories, you throw up parables and ideas which people can attach themselves to. And the plant kingdom is really an allegory and a living mythology. And this is what I've seen, is by being introduced to the plant kingdom, you're really being, what the plant kingdom does, it takes you straight into mythological thought. And all these wonderful myths of creation, like I told you, Marta, before, about the story, we have the pomegranate there, which it connects you to the story of Demeter, the earth goddess, whose daughter was raped by Hades, who was the brother of Zeus. So he was a very important god. He took her into the underworld, and she it was a kind of horror, for her to be taken into the darkness, and yet she fell in love with her captor, who had an extraordinary, bright, high intelligence despite the darkness of the place. And she kind of fell in love with her captor. So before she came back up, she was rescued by the the gods. She ate a piece of a pomegranate seed, and that connected her to the underworld. She would never be able to cut off, so she spent 3 months a year into the underworld, and then the whole of nature would die. And then when she came and joined her mother, and then nature revived in the spring and the summer and the autumn. So it's just an analogical way of understanding nature, in a way, the way nature tells us stories which are deeply embedded in our psyche. So suddenly you get connected to these plants, and what do? They just, I think, reveal the light that you have within you, because you stop seeing nature as inert matter and exploitable value, but you start seeing nature as the light within. The light within, which is shining in a great star within you, which is reflecting a specular with the great outer star. And ultimately then you see that all the stars, within and without, they're all reflecting each other. They're all connected. So I find that nature is the best metaphor for you to see your guiding star, actually. And you don't have to talk about God, you don't have to talk about prophets, you don't have to talk about religion and all the commandments and the liturgy, because if you can see things, you don't have to have rules and regulations. What you see, you don't have to understand, you just see it. So that's the way I see having the possibility of retreating into nature and helping people not just to appreciate nature as something aesthetically beautiful, but actually speaking with nature. That's the thing. So the question of the heart, not too much head. In the West, we're too intellectual.
Actually, this is you have this experience in the East and studying in India, as you said. Maybe tell about a little what was studying about.
Well, I did ostensibly when I first went to India. I was running away. I had my first experience was within a corporation, a big corporation. Within 3 years, they were promoting me to becoming regional manager of something, and they invited me. This was an English company. They'd invited me to the investiture dinner, and all the old boys were going to be there in suits, and they all belonged to famous families and good schools. And what happened was, I went to North Africa before, and as I traveled around North Africa, I thought, oh God, no, I can't do this. So when I turned up for that dinner, I turned up in drag, dressed as a woman.
I see.
And these people, how the English are stiff upper lip. They can't deal with stuff like that. So they had the dinner with me, and they were all very polite. They were making polite conversation, but you could see they were practically rupturing themselves, because what are we doing talking with a woman? And this is the guy that we're supposed to be promoted to become regional manager. And they managed to sort of pull their way through dinner. And I'll tell you what was the connection between this and Tibet. Well, I'll tell you in a second. And of course, I got a letter immediately that due to economic circumstances, they could not keep the position open because things had happened. And So I just got someone to take me to the station here, and I took the train to Belgrade and down to Istanbul. And then I started hitchhiking, and then I got myself a bicycle in Afghanistan, and I crossed Afghanistan on a bicycle, and I got to the Khyber Pass, and I went up into Pakistan and down into India, and places like Hardwar and Rishikesh. And what was I doing? I was really just trying to find someone who could tell me what the hell was happening.
I see.
Because I was not satisfied with being given a catechism. At school, whether I went to Protestant, Catholic schools, they just kept giving us questions, answers.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that?
They didn't let you think your own.
They didn't let you feel your own way,
Yeah.
So I then started meeting extraordinary people, some terrible, extraordinary people. I met Krishnamurti.
Wow, you met Krishnamurti in person?
Yes.
Wow, it's my mother is a very big, follower of him, and I also read his books.
Yeah.
It's a very good philosopher from my
He was,
opinion.
and to me, I felt, it was the first time I met an extraordinary spirit. I just was bowled over. But the thing about it was I didn't feel he was my spirit. So I really appreciated it. I loved meeting him. I met some other good people, and some quite bad ones. But essentially, I was seeking the man who would be like my spiritual father, if you like. And I didn't find anybody that time round. I kept coming back, and then I went. And then 20 years later, I was about to do something really terrible in my life, and then the message came from the man I'd been looking for through a friend of mine, and she said, "You have to go to this old man, he's waiting for you." And I kind of knew it was him, I hadn't seen him or anything, and I took a plane, I went to Rajasthan, and there he was. He was the one I'd been looking for all my life. But he kind of found me, So then I began to learn everything that I was ready to learn, which was not necessarily everything, but it changed the perspective. And I think if you seek, you will find things, and you don't necessarily have to put a name to the thing you're seeking. It's like you have a yearning, right? And what is the yearning? You don't know. I don't know. What am I supposed to be yearning? I just have a yearning. That's my greatest energy, my driving force, and the yearning does lead you to finding whatever you have to find, and so of course then it kind of messed up my life in the West. Complicated.
I can realize, because it's also I really understand what you feel, because I have a similar feeling about my really long time in China and in Taiwan. Like I miss something with European mentality. I need something new, because I was born in Russia, but still actually it's still mostly Western, mostly European mentality we have there, and when I see this Asian way of life and how they interact with nature, because I mostly spend in villages also, all these farmers, all this rural life, absolutely different philosophy of life. I was mostly from business perspective, but still it's something completely different. When you later on try to mix it up, and somehow it can be mixed, but it also can be, as you say, you receive other perspective, and your last perspectives absolutely don't fit each other.
Here in the West, it's complicated because culture and society is so damn materialistic. Of course, there are people. It's mixed, and it's not all like that. It's not monolithic. But in general, the business and culture, and any kind of culture, tends towards materialism. So this is a difficulty. You create a kind of dichotomy, a potential schizophrenia. I got a bit schizophrenic when I got here. I didn't know what do I expect. Every time I went too much to the right, so to speak, with the kind of, I don't use the word spiritual, but that kind of artistic. I got into trouble. Because people, the first time I tried to create an institute like this, it was in the 80s, and I was connected with California. We had a lot of great people. They saw me as a Satanist. But what I was doing, we were doing nothing. We were just doing mythological exercises and just experimental stuff. But so that's really where I learned in a way, and I learned it because we went to Scotland. We have it in our DNA, our family. We have this thing that we're all raconteurs. And I really realized that the storytelling thing is the key. I have never been caught out by anybody, because all I say is that I'm just telling you a story.
I see.
Are you telling me that this? No, I'm just telling you a story.
Yeah, I see.
And then nobody has ever actually taken me up, because there's nothing to fight. I'm not handing over any facts. But the analogical way, the metaphoric way, the symbolic way, the allegory transmits a lot of information, and people take what they want out of that.
Actually, very interesting issue, because I also, for all my life, tried to get rid of all this political, religion, whatever. But sometimes, I represent some information about tea, for example, and about cultural aspects and so on. But they also, for my feeling now, for example, what we have, like bad example, what's happening now in Russia, on my side, and I see that some people from my occupation, I think they are open-minded because they interact with me on some point, and they are, for my feeling, they was like spiritual maybe in some point. But because I didn't share any factual opinion on some issues what I have, I only also often was metaphorical and so on. They can have also imagination about what people have inside, what are their opinion or on current issues, which is like material issues, and this way how we can bridge through these metaphors this strong connection to have them really open-minded, really free opinion on things, not like they stuck. So they see you as a spiritual guru or spiritual transmitter, but they all still have this materialistic crap, sorry for that word, but they still receive it, and they somehow combine it in their mind, and they not get rid from that. They're still in. How we can help them to also metaphorically, but still give them right information, not right, but maybe more open up information about.
Well, I think nonsense is a great vehicle there, because I think everybody gets very much stuck on their high horses. They're all, but suddenly through nonsense, everybody they all become children. You don't have to do that. Let's have some fun, And then with that fun, you can actually transmit some quite important information. So you don't get into these diatribes, which are just such a waste of time, because nobody has the actual answer to these things. But I think you can avoid them very well. So this has been a very good vehicle for me. In fact, I was just thinking about, tonight we're going to be talking about your, and they're essentially Oriental tea ceremony. You're talking about Thailand, China, Japan, right? And of course they have the ones to teach. But I've been thinking about, because in my own tradition, from obviously between Italy and Britain is the place that has, they know about tea. And I was just asking myself what an English tea ceremony could be. And I just had an idea. And I think I will just mention it this evening, just briefly as an introduction, which I think is the most beautiful part of English culture. I don't want to talk about the East India Company type of Britain, which was about control, domination, commerce and stuff, which is
colonialism.
Exactly. But what I would like to do, and we have a precedent, is to go to Lewis Carroll. Lewis Carroll has an episode in Alice in Wonderland where suddenly Alice, what is it, Eaglet, Laurie, in the Mad Hatter Tea Party, which already the Mad Hatter Tea Party, wonderful. Again, it's just so crazy and wonderful. And there's Alice, Eaglet, Laurie, Duck, and Dodo. Now, Alice was a young friend that Lewis Carroll was looking after on the River Thames. And Alice brought her two sisters, which were Laurie and Eaglet. So he transformed them all into little animals. Then there was Duck, who was the most Reverend Duckworth, who was the priest who would come and look after the girls. And Dodo was actually the nickname of Lewis Carroll, which is funny. I have a kind of Dodo there. And they had this wonderful party in this kind of, in this memorable summer like a dream on the River Thames. And there's something about the dreamlike and the nonsense quality of Lewis Carroll and that kind of school of nonsense, which is the best way to go into the English tea ceremony, I think.
Wow, great.
And we can make it very oriental and very zen, because it's totally incomprehensible at a level, and yet it's so beautiful.
It's not too formal, but
That's
still
right.
it is a lot of rituals behind, and also in the context where anyone know Alice in Wonderland, and anyone have its own opinion on how it's represented in his mind, you know, but still it's wonderful.
So we can have
actually.
Lewis Carroll as
Yeah.
as the master of English tea ceremony,
Yeah,
alias otherwise known as Dodo, and his descendant Dado,
great, great.
and we can do a bit of that. So we'll have a lot of fun with that.
Actually, it's a good idea. So we can create.
So we can
invent new English
we
ceremonies.
we can start doing that this evening. We'll start talking about it,
Yeah.
and then we'll do a video, and I will start wearing funny hats.
Great. I will participate.
And doing the tea ceremony. So I wear all the hats of the characters in Alice in Wonderland. You see,
Perfect.
a big hat for the Mad Hatter,
Yeah.
and all the various characters, and all the complete nonsense they talk at the tea table, including the Queen, who's very ferocious and wants everybody beheaded. I'll cut your head off, when she gets angry with people. So anyway, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, the people who are coming this evening, it's pretty mixed, actually, different countries. A lot of Italians, but a lot of other ones, some Americans, and we'll see, because it's Easter time, so the people are trying to get back for this, because they feel something special is happening. So we'll see what happens.
About your travels, you also said about bicycling across Afghanistan. It's how it was, you know. Sorry for maybe it's a very stupid question, but because I love traveling, and as you said before, I'm a travel junkie, because I'm still young and still feel this passion to travel.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
Oh, young
so
guy,
almost
yes,
40,
yes,
but still, you know. But only in the beginning. For me, it's a good, chance, and even, it's really good chance to meet people like you, because I can transform experience, and I can hear how it can happen if I do something this way or that way. So for me, it's also.
But I don't
very
recommend
good discovery.
cycling across Afghanistan. What I found is people would just throw stones at me.
Okay.
So I don't know why. Maybe you look different. They became a bit hostile. I found that I got that quite a lot even in North Africa. We travelled around in an open Lotus Super 7, and just people threw stones at us. It was a bit dangerous, and we met some people in first of all, I remember that there was a kind of the Afghans. They're very ferocious people, and I went to the Buzkashi, and which was the king's birthday, and all these tribesmen came down from the hills. They played this game with this carcass of a donkey. They drag across this huge field, and all the people would stand around the field, and the cavalrymen would go straight through the crowds.
Wow.
So bodies everywhere,
Wow,
that was
great.
part of the sport. So it's quite frightening in a way. And then I met these two people from UNICEF who were walking around the world for UNICEF, and they went up the Khyber Pass without paying special fees of protection, and one of them got killed, and then I went to see the other one in Lahore in hospital, where he was recovering from his wounds. So some of these trips can be a bit dangerous, I must say. I went through a few quite hairy situations,
I can imagine.
which you can do at that age. I wouldn't, do that again. Apart from that,
But still, it brings some experience, because for me, the most valuable thing in these travels, you see the world, you see the perspectives of different people, how they live, how they act. You can interact with them, and for this, you're learning how different and how completely various can be world. And also the same as you talk about nature, the same about plants. We also like plants, and somehow, because plants who grow, in Asia or in America are different plants, the same as people. And
sure, yes, sure.
That's also like kind of analogy for that.
Well, you still have your Wanderlust going around. I kind of gone out of that now. I mean, though I must say, I'm really pleased to go to Mexico in 2 days' time. Sometimes it's really good to get, cobwebs away and change the perspective. It makes life better when you come back, because I think you can look at yourself better once you've sometimes gone out of yourself and out of your milieu. I mean, this garden is great and we love being here. It is a magic garden, but it is also a golden cage. And sometimes we feel imprisoned here. You know, it's really hard to get out because it's just really, there's a lot of management of all these people who come here, and we haven't found a proper management structure to relieve us so that we can do what I'd really like to do is just to tell stories now. I like to tell stories.
And this last question maybe about Cenacolo community.
Cenacolo.
Cenacolo
Yes.
community. And what's the name? What's the meaning?
Okay, so the name originates from the Latin cenaculum, which means the dining together. It's a kind of sacred dining club, and it was originally conceived, I think, to refer partly to the Last Supper, but also cenaculum was like considered a dining club for intellectuals and kindred spirits. So when I came back here and a few years ago, and they would say, Dado, come and tell us a story this evening, and I told them a story, and then the group was originally 5 or 6, and then it became 20, and then 40, and they started calling it Cenacolo. I didn't call it Cenacolo. And then I discovered that the group that used to meet here in 1949 with all these great intellects was called Cenacolo. We have all the paintings in the walls with the portraits of some of the artists, and the farm workers were also part of this. And that so 1949 there was already a Cenacolo, and they were already harking back to the original cenaculum, which meant dining club, which in these gardens and under Livia, this great curandera, empress, and Augustus, and Maecenas. Maecenas was an Etruscan patron of the arts. They would bring people like Virgil and Horace and Ovid and Propertius here, because they'd come and tell their poems, and then they would crown them with the laurel, which is the master plant here.
I see.
And so we've suddenly found ourselves, without knowing it, like sleepwalkers carrying out ancient movements, you know, in this
like
ancient
continue
land.
this 1,000 years tradition.
2038 years. Or is it 2000? Where are we now? 12, so 38, 2050 years.
Wow.
That we're carrying out the same ritual in the same land. That counts for something, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I see.
In this age of rootlessness.
We can
roots.
do something.
So I think we have to do this. I mean, I sometimes say to myself, my God, this is too much for me. It's too much work. I can't do this. And then I think, what are we going to do? Chuck this away overnight? I mean, in a whim? No. We have to do it. I think these are very important ancient roots. It's like another little anecdote I'll tell you about, which we looked after. I came into contact in an abbey in Valnerina of this lady called Teresa, who was a fire minder in this beautiful abbey, and she basically, I discovered, she'd been minding the same flame all her life for 65 years.
Wow.
And her father before her all his life, every day they went there and they were a fire minder. And this went back to the year 720 AD, when a Longobard duke and a man from Aleppo, so Syrian, lived in a cave together. They were two peoples that met, populations that met up there, and they lit the flame of the world, of the anima mundi. And this flame had been kept alive 1,300 years until Teresa. Then Teresa died, so we got the Cenacolo. I said, quick, before the flame goes out, let's go out. And we went out to the abbey, and we lit. We had people coming from Africa, from France, from Wales, from all over the place. They all brought their candle.
Wow.
So we all lit the candle, our own candle, from the flame of the anima mundi, and we all took it home. So now there's not just one.
Keeping?
Yeah, they're all. We have our Orthodox community. They keep the flame of the anima mundi. But this is another example. It's so easy to wipe everything away. You can wipe everything away in a second. It takes ages for things to come up again. So if you still have it alive, you have to try and keep it alive, really. Well, no, I think we said quite a lot.
Yeah, you
We
said
don't
quite a
wanna,
lot. Yeah.
just
Okay. So
less is more.
yeah. Thank you very much for a
Right.
great interview.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Nice.
friends, I will description. I will leave Tado's page. Maybe if you will be in Rome somehow, I think it's a good occasion to talk at least. Yeah, for special occasion. So yeah, thank you very much again, and
Okay.
keep in touch. Yeah.
And if you want to come to retreat into Otium, which is productive inertia, then this is the place. This is the garden. And you will learn to do nothing profitably. That's what you learn to do. To do nothing profitably. Do you know what that means?
Perfect skill. Actually.
It either means that everything that you do, nothing produces any profit, or it means that if you do nothing, that becomes profitable. So doing nothing profitably, there is a great profit in doing nothing, actually, at many levels.
Yeah.
That's what we got to relearn.
New skill.
And
for me too.
monotasking too. Learning to do one thing at a time, because we're all going crazy multitasking. Everybody's multitasking. Everybody's going crazy multitasking, having nervous breakdowns.
Yeah, so monotasking is a next step in
absolutely.
our mentality to build up.
And then no tasking at all.
Yeah.
Which is you after monotask you go to no tasking.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, anyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah.